All right, welcome back to Niners Nightly. And with us on the UMA guest line to talk a little bit about Super Bowl 60, as well as what the Niners may be looking at, because he was in Mobile all last week. And that's Johnnydels, who's a great follow on X at Johnnydels. He's a 49er fan. He's a film junkie. He's an analyst. He's really, really good. And if you check him out, you will not be disappointed. Check his stuff out on YouTube. And he's with us. What's up, Johnny? How are you?
Oh, I'm doing all right. Probably not as good as I would be doing if it wasn't a division rival that we had to watch in the Super Bowl. It feels like the last three Super Bowls the 49ers weren't in. It was like the matchup of teams that we really don't like.
Yeah. I mean, my wife was asking me earlier this week. So, hey, it's a Super Bowl week. Is it, excited about it? I'm like, well, there wasn't a three-story Sam Darnold mural on the middle of the stadium wearing a Seahawks jersey, and the locker room didn't say Seahawks across. I mean, it's tough to stomach. It really is. But let's talk a little bit about the matchup in the X's and O's, because I think you're a great guy to talk with. You roll that film back and forth, and you have an interesting way of looking at the game. I think everybody sees this as a Seahawk, route, and I just don't. I think the Seattle Seahawks beat the Niners, but the Niners were limping, and the Niners had nothing at that point, and they were tired. Then they get the road weary Rams, and they have the rest advantage, and they're at home in Seattle, and still that thing was absolutely a battle. Could have gone either way. And I know a lot of people say, oh, that's the Super Bowl, but I think that's putting too little credit on what the Patriots have done. The Patriots are a really solid football team with a well-coached team. They're really good in the secondary. Christian Gonzalez, Marcus Jones, they've got some guys. I think they'll get a pick in this game. They're rugged up front. Barmore's healthy. They can run the ball. Their offensive line is young on the left side, but Diggs is a big-time gutty receiver who's going to show up. They're taking on the traits of Vrabel, who was kind of tough and kind of fearless, and they're looking kind of tough and fearless. And then May is so dang young that I just feel like he's impervious to the pressure of the whole thing. I like New England. I like New England to potentially win. I think they're going to cover.
Yeah, I think New England is a team that uh it kind of feels like they're a team with less to lose by losing. I mean, at this point in the year, losing is terrible for anybody. There is no worse feeling than having your team lose the Super Bowl. We've seen that, but you look at a team that has a really energetic defense, a fast defense, a defense that wants to confuse, that really majors in making life hard for an opposing offense schematically. Just, we're not going to line up and show you what you want to have shown. And we're going to, make you work for every bit of data you get on your side. They're, they're not as high sung as the Seahawks front seven, but I think they can play as well as anybody. And you have the fact that you got a Josh McDaniels who's coming in coaching in his ninth, 10th, or 11th Super Bowl. It's hard to keep track of how many Super Bowls Josh McDaniels has coached in now. He's going to be absolutely ready. He understands the exact schedule of preparation and what needs to go into the preparation, and he's going to have something in there, several things in there that Seattle's not ready for on defense. He's just going to, because this is somebody who has understood how to, budget his time through these 2 weeks as well as anybody. And he's going to have the offense ready to go. They're going to be able to put some points. I think they match up better where Seattle's defense isn't as good, and that they are able to match up on the outside. I think they can do that. Like you said, Stephon Diggs, I think they're going to be able to move the ball. I do just wonder, does that Seattle front win the game? Because we've seen that the last number of years in the Super Bowl, the team that has the front that becomes the most disruptive tends to win. And so does Seattle's front be as disruptive as they were the last couple games. Like you said, though, they were facing a 49ers team that I felt like hit their season, emotional peak against the Eagles, winning that game, and it felt like they just ran out of steam after that. They just didn't have anything left in the tank. It kind of reminds me of the 2019 49ers, where they came out of nowhere and they got into the playoffs, and everybody thought it was going to be really close games against Minnesota. It's going to be a really good game there against Green Bay. And San Francisco actually absolutely steamrolled both. And it was, okay, you're going into the Super Bowl. The 49ers are going to be a really tough juggernaut to stop. And they ran into that Chiefs defense that turned into a buzzsaw at the end of the game. And I wonder if that same thing's going to happen here to Seattle. If Seattle can execute and score once in the fourth quarter, I think, then this game could look exactly like what people are predicting. If not, if they start, if this comes down to who's going to not make the most mistakes in the fourth quarter, I'm going to go with the Patriots.
I just look at this and I'm like, hey, who do I think is the better coach? I would go with Vrabel. I think they're both really good coaches, but I'd go with Vrabel. Who do I think is the better quarterback? I'd go with May. So if I could have the better quarterback and the better head coach, now Seattle's defense is really good. There's no question about that. Nick Manwari had some kind of ankle sprain, and I don't know what his status is going to be for Super Bowl Sunday. I'm sure he's going to go, but he may not be quite 100%. But here's the thing about this. Blake Corum just ran for 6 yards a carry last week against this same defense. And I don't know. I mean, you tell me New England's not going to be able to run at all against Seattle. I mean, what do you make of the fact that the Rams ran the ball effectively against Seattle and ran for 5 yards a carry?
I think it means that they've got to have some questions answered in LA of why they didn't win that game. But
Right.
Seattle loves to major in too high. That was, I think, the frustration I've had most of the season, especially after the 49ers games with them, the three that we had, is that people would continually say the same thing. Well, Seattle's just going to stack the box. They're going to have 8 men in the box. They're going to bring an extra safety down in the box. That's not what Seattle does.
No.
They sit there in too high, and they have all sorts of ways of pressing your gaps up front so that they can take the runaway while still keeping two guys back. If you can run the ball and get them out of that, where they do have to start closing the middle of the field, and they can't sit there and run with these different combo coverages on the outsides, it makes life harder for them. I don't think their corners hold up as well in one-on-one down the sideline without that safety that can be around the hashes as well. And so I wonder, if you can do that in your New England, and that's going to be what Vrabel wants to do. I mean, Vrabel is an old school mentality coach that says you will run the ball, you will press on running the ball, and we will force them defensively to do something different than what they really want to do, and it allows us to throw the ball. I think that's what's going to happen. It'll be interesting to see if they can make it happen. It's a tough challenge for anybody. I mean, that Seattle front is as good as anybody in the league. So it's not an easy task, but it is a straightforward, simple task, if that makes sense.
It's always interesting to see how everybody's got a different standard. Some teams' standard is they have to win the Super Bowl. Like I would say the 49ers at this point, they've been to enough Super Bowls where if they get into another one, it's like they're not going to be satisfied with just being in the game. They need to win in the Super Bowl. But who do you think's got the higher calling this year? Because on one hand, you'd say it's Seattle because they're the one seed, everything's going their way, but they do have an awfully young head coach, and they do have Sam Darnold at quarterback. On the other hand, New England was 4-13 last year. And, win or lose, it's been a great year for them. So it's easy to kind of see where they could be that way. But then Vrabel's been to the mountaintop, and that organization has. They've experienced Super Bowls, and, they've experienced winning and losing Super Bowls. So he's got that on his ledger. I mean, who do you think is going to be like more satisfied with not winning the game?
I think Seahawks fans would be more satisfied not winning the game just from personal experience. So, when they went to the Super Bowl against the Steelers, if you remember way back, I was actually attending a university that the Seahawks were practicing on our campus. They leased their practice facilities from the university. So our northern parking lot was their overflow parking. And I remember so this will date me. I was driving back from Circuit City after I'd gone, I think I went to buy a TV at Circuit City, TV for my dorm room, and was coming back, came to an intersection, and the police pulled up and they blocked off the intersection. Here came the 3-team buses with the Seahawks. And I followed them back to the university, pulled into the parking lot. They pulled into the parking lot, unloaded from just losing the Super Bowl against the Steelers. And I will tell you, the Seattle fans were still lining the street. They were still there. They were cheering their team on, having lost the Super Bowl and living in that area right there. The fans were as happy as can be that they were in a Super Bowl. That was a team that up to that point had never been to a Super Bowl. And so I will tell you, the Seattle fans in that area, they're going to hang their hat for the next 5 years that they made that Super Bowl. So I think as a fan base, Seattle will be more comfortable with it.
They're the more comfortable one. Let's talk about the Niners and where they go from here, because it's Niners Nightly. Let's talk about Seattle. I mean, you just described their defense. Now you're Kyle Shanahan. I don't think people are asking the question, is Kyle schematically fallen behind? I don't think he has at all. I think it's much more about the personnel. He's got no speed at receiver. Got a lot out of his tight ends, but it's a one back situation. They don't have young quality backs, or if they do, they didn't play them. Their line needs to be upgraded. Where does it start? I mean, the Senior Bowl, you were in Mobile. Who did you see there that can help them get over, the two teams that reside in their division, the Rams and the Seahawks?
I think if we're going to look at it first on the offensive side of the ball, they've got to inject some playmaking at wide receiver. They've got to get some speed to go down the field. They've also got to get guys who can catch and run with the ball. This offense for so many years, we had the Yak brothers, right? We had Ayuk and Debo, who it was almost the pejorative against Brock Purdy that these guys could catch the ball and go do something special with it. Who on this team this last year did you feel like if you could just get the ball in their hands, they could do something special with it? And there wasn't anybody at receiver that you felt that way. I mean, maybe Ricky, if he got it in enough space and he wasn't dealing with his knee having problems for almost the entire year, but there was nobody you felt like if you could get a 10-yard basic route to, and it might be a house call. That wasn't going to be Kendrick Bourne. It wasn't going to be Demarcus Robinson against the Eagles got 5 yards behind the defense and still didn't score a touchdown. Juwan Jennings, he's a contested catch guy. He's somebody who he was third down in red zone. That's what he was meant to be. He wasn't a big catch and run guy. He had a couple, but you're also saying, those are plays that any of our guys in the past score a touchdown on, because you get that seam. It was big enough. Once you got it, you've got to get some, I think, speed at the receiver position.
Yeah, run after the catch used to be a major staple for the 49ers, and it's just they got nothing this year. Their run after the catch was nil. They need more dynamic weapons. Who did you see in Mobile weapon-wise, receiver or running back that you thought was super dynamic?
So if I'm looking at more run after the catch guys, like kind of slot players, I really liked the kid from Missouri, Kevin Coleman Jr. He's a little bit smaller, but was silky smooth in a lot of his one-on-ones and has a lot of burst and acceleration. He really challenged and gave problems to the defensive backs in their one-on-ones. Kevin Coleman, he's a good route runner. I think that's somebody there. The kid, Lewis Bond from Boston College, I think he fits more of the size. He's a thick kid. He's 5'10", about 200 pounds. He's got some good feet. What I did like about him is that in their one-on-ones, he protected his chest. That was one thing over and over again you'd see from these receivers when they would have their one-on-ones with the defensive backs. They get their arms flailing real wide as they're trying to make all their shake and bake moves. And some of them, it cost them in their reps when the guys would come up and play press. And they pull those arms out wide and guys would just jam them right in their chest. Lewis Bond didn't. So he's somebody that he's an interesting character. I don't know where he's going to be necessarily slotted. He's not going to be an early round guy, but he's got some really good burst and could be a very, good run after catch guy. I think where they really want to go, though, is an more X receiver type. They love big catch radius guys with those X receivers. You look at Debo, he's, was over 6 foot and could also had a really high vertical. He could climb the ladder and go get the ball. Brandon Ayuk, long arms, over 6 foot, had a big catch radius. Juwan Jennings, big catch radius. Ricky Pearsall, he's over 6 feet, can climb the ladder and make catches in a huge area. He's got a big catch radius. They really like that. The two kids I was really excited about coming away from the Senior Bowl with those big catch radius was Jacoby Lane from USC and Malachi Fields from Notre Dame. I think both those guys, big, tall kids, prototypical X receiver types. They have the game speed to win deep. I don't know what their 40 is going to be yet, but their game speed was there. They could win downfield. Sometimes we make a little bit too much of the 40. It's, can you beat your guy and stack the corner? And both of them could do that. And they were catching almost everything in that was thrown in their direction. Now, Malachi had a little bit of a rough day. The last day of practice had a number of drops, but he also had probably the best catch at the Senior Bowl. It was on a corner post, and he went and dove and made an adjustment to a bad ball. So those are a couple guys, and I think another guy that is really intriguing to me. I've been watching his cut-ups from the Senior Bowl this afternoon is Ted Hurst from Georgia State. I think that's somebody else that does make a lot of sense. He's a little over 6 foot. He's 6'3", and he's 207 pounds. So he's another big bodied receiver. I think those three guys are kind of your X receivers that I felt coming away from the Senior Bowl had really shown that they could be that kind of a guy.
Yeah, dynamic players there. Jacoby Lane is I saw some of the drills. I mean, he is just a big leaper too. He's 6'4". He's got a gigantic catch radius. I don't know how consistent he is, but yeah, I mean, the catch radius is just huge. Malachi Fields, started at Virginia, transferred to Notre Dame, just super productive. And yeah, he had that post pattern and it looked like Lynn Swan in Super Bowl 10 or something. I mean, this guy's going out. The phrase I would use, I remember when I was in the Canadian League, we were played golf with Dave Archer, who's now a Falcons announcer, the former quarterback with the Falcons, was in the Canadian League at the same time. And he would say about a receiver, man, you got to love blankety blank. He'll go get it for you. And when I watch Malachi Fields, I mean, that's kind of what I see there. It's like, this guy's going to go get it. He kind of looks to me like Juwan, but maybe a little faster. I don't think he's fast though. I think he's probably a 4.55 guy. I don't think I'd be surprised if he's sub 4.5. If he's sub 4.5, he might be a first round pick or a second round pick because he's big and got great ball skills. Who do you see as the home run hitters? Who are the guys who are going to light up? I know Zachariah Branch from Georgia is going to run great, but he's 5'10", 175 pounds. Who do you see as the guys who are vertical? Jerry Rice was saying they need a burner, and really more than anything, it's like if they're going to have DeMarcus Robinson, if they're going to bring back Bourne, if they're going with the same guys they got, I mean, it's not a fast group. Jerry's right. They need that kind of vertical, take the top off, create some space. Who do you think is going to run really well in Indy? Of that group that runs well, who's the best receiver?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, just kind of going back through my notes, I would say I think Ted Hurst is going to run pretty well.
He's interesting from Georgia State.
Yeah,
because normally it's a Georgia State. I mean, come on, but this guy is. I don't want to say he's Jerry Rice. He's not Jerry Rice, but he is one of the more impressive small school receivers you're going to see. I mean, this guy's got to be every bit of 6'3". He's really explosive down the field. He's got strong hands. He's got a lot of confidence. You can see Ted Hurst is going to be a really nice NFL receiver.
Yeah, and I think he's going to have a little more of the vertical speed. I think Virgil Reggie from Texas Tech is going to run really well. He's again, he's not a small guy. He's 6'2", but he's about 190 pounds. I think is what he weighed in at the Senior Bowl. And he seemed like he had some real good vertical speed. Now they didn't run a lot of just straight go patterns there, so it was harder to tell some of that. But I remember Virgil, he had some. It was on I want to say a 10-yard post. His separation, once he came out of the break, he accelerated really quickly, and there was no chance he was going to get caught. So I would think he's going to run pretty well. I don't think he's, that's going to be an opportunity for him to move more into the lower mid rounds. I think he's a solidly mid round pick. We'll see where that kind of ends up. But I think he's going to run well. I think he will. I don't know how dynamic he will be in everything. He didn't flash a lot there at the Senior Bowl. I'd marked a few notes about him, but I think he'll run well.
49ers are going to be looking for a tight end, and Stanford Sam Roush.
Oh yeah.
He's a guy that I know you like. I met his family before the big game. Seems like a really solid kid. He dropped just the easiest pass in the early part of the game, in the All-Star game, and it's the kind of pass that you really got to catch every single time. So there's some people that are sure I'm concerned about his hands, but he's 260. He's a really good blocker. I think there's a lot of potential there to get better as a tight end. What do you think of Roush?
I absolutely love Roush. Got a chance to talk with him for 5 to 10 minutes there at media day at the Senior Bowl. I'm bad because if I start recording anything, I can sometimes forget what I'm trying to say. So I came up while a buddy of mine that was doing some text and stuff, he had started talking to him, and I just walked up, and then we just started having a conversation. And first thing I asked him, I said, "So, did you have any classes with John Lynch? Because we know how that's a deciding factor for John." And he laughed. He said, no, I didn't have any classes. He said, but Mr. Lynch has been around a number of our practices. He comes to several of our practices every year. And so I talked to him, had he had an official meeting with the 49ers, because there's one thing that gets misunderstood from the Senior Bowl, because it's often asked, did you meet with this team? And every player is going to, I've never seen a player say no. And the reason why is because every team has an unofficial meeting with every player. When you walk into the elevator at the Mobile Convention Center to go to media day, there's the printed out schedule on the wall of the teams and the players. And there's a slotted time for Team Connect. And what it is those players will meet with every single team to exchange contact information to make sure that they're up to date on who their agent is, what phone number they're using in case they're using a burner phone during this time, and where their residence is now while they're training. And so they know how to contact and where they're going to be flying people from in case they bring somebody out for a top 30 visit, right? So people will say, well, did you meet with this team? And they'll say, yeah. Then they have the official meeting, and we walked by the meeting rooms, okay? And the meeting rooms, those are the ones like you've seen on Hard Knocks, where they're bringing kids in and they're putting up their tape. They have a whiteboard there, and they're walking them through intensive questions that they really want to know more about. And that is the kind of meeting that Sam had with the 49ers. He had an official meeting. Not every player will meet with every team in that context. And so I asked him, what did you go over? And he said, well, we went over whiteboard stuff. And so I was asking him, well, you're going over memory stuff? Was this, talking about the offense, them giving you plays, and then trying to see if you could remember what was happening with the shifts and motions, routes, and all this? He said, no, actually, we didn't talk about their offense at all. They wanted to see how he was seeing the defense. And so, that's just fascinating in there that the 49ers have met with the kid. Like you said, he's got a really good demeanor, got a solid head on his shoulders, really personable, great blocker. He was very adamant. I take a lot of pride in my run blocking. That is the part of my game that I want to show I'm better than anybody else at. But he's underrated as a receiver. Now, you said like he had the rough drop. I will say during all the days of the practices, I don't remember him having a drop during the Senior Bowl practices, and he was getting open using that big frame. I mean, you said he's 260 pounds. He looks every bit of it in a good way. He looks like just a tight end body. He's 6'4", 260. He's a mountain of a man, and you can see why he is such a powerful blocker.
Offensive line's going to be a key spot. We're talking to Johnnydels about going to Mobile. Offensive line's going to be huge. I mean, right? They're going to look for offensive line at some point. The guy that just impresses me is the guy with the big red mullet, Jennings Dunker from Iowa, and he's just, I mean, I don't. My only question is, I don't know if I could take him in the first round if he's a guard, and he might be a guard. So I'm not really sure. He's played right tackle for Iowa. Iowa runs the same scheme as the Niners. He looks like a guy who probably you could plug and play him right away at right tackle or right guard. Maybe you start him at right guard and move him to right tackle. But he just looks like the kind of guy you'd want, like a culture player. He's just this barrel-chested, wide-body guy with great feet. Kind of reminds me of Lane Johnson. He's kind of like a throwback, old-school guy. But some people think he's too slow and he's a guard and not more than a guard. What did you think of Dunker? What did you think? Who was the best offensive lineman that you saw down there?
I mean, I think it's Jennings Dunker, and he came in and, no pun intended, dunked. Was a slam dunk at the Senior Bowl. What it reminded me of. Okay, so last year when we went down to the Senior Bowl, the big question was: is Gray Zabel really able to do it against the best in college? He was playing at North Dakota. He looked like a really good guard there. Could he show up and prove that he was really that good? And I think he was a late second is what people looked at him as before the Senior Bowl. He showed up in Mobile and won almost every rep he had, just dominated the Senior Bowl against a really good defensive line class. I mean, a Senior Bowl that featured guys like Walter Nolan and Shamar Stewart and Jamari Caldwell and a bunch of other names of guys who went and got drafted. And walking away from that weekend or that week, I think everybody was saying Gray Zabel is the best interior lineman in this class. Now, I don't know what the Cowboys were thinking with getting Booker because they decided that he was the better offensive lineman. Seattle went and got Gray Zabel, and it transformed their offensive line. And Gray Zabel was one of the highest graded offensive linemen this year. Jennings Dunker is this year's Gray Zabel is what it looks like. That kid showed up and didn't lose reps. Won everyone, no matter where you lined him up, whether it was right tackle, right guard. He took some one-on-one snaps at center. He talked about that he's been training at every single offensive line position since his college days ended because he wants to prove that he can play anywhere on the line because he understands teams are going to look at him as a tackle and say, maybe you have too short of arms and you're not a Will Campbell, so we don't know if we can play you at tackle. I would say when you have a player that can be a high-level offensive lineman, and so what if he's going to be a guard, you pick that kid if he's there. If you think this is going to be a future all-pro lineman in some way, then you pick that kid no matter what, because offensive linemen these days especially are in such high demand and so rare to find kids that have the abilities that he has. If he's there at 27, I'm turning it in and I'm figuring out where he's going to play because you find a place for him because he's that good. And he's, like you said, he's a culture guy. I mean, just jumps off the field, jumps out of the meeting room or the media room and everything was fun to listen to. I think he became most people's draft crush during the Senior Bowl week as just a complete aura. But loved everything about Jennings Dunker. He became my biggest draft crush that whole week.
Raheem Morris badly needs some good defensive players on all three levels of this defense. I mean, there were a bunch of guys that impressed me. Bud Clark had a week. Gabe Yakis from Illinois is just a monster at 275. I mean, Kyle Lewis, the Pitt linebacker, can absolutely fly. That guy's everywhere. Really liked what I saw from him. Zion Young, I mean, to me, that's the guy that I would take in the first round. How do you not take Zion Young if you're the Niners? He's just an absolute monster opposite Nick Bosa, 6'5", 265. Lee Hunter from Texas Tech is an animal.
He had such a good week. Oh, my gosh.
I mean, Caleb Banks might be my favorite guy from Florida at the foot. Checks out. This guy's 6'6", 3.25. He's he reminds me of Chris Jones. I mean, just a monster. You're not blocking Caleb Banks. Him and Tyreek Sapp and on Florida's line were monster this year. Daryl Jackson from Florida
Sapp
State.
was he was somebody that I've made so many notes on Sapp because
Yeah,
he was flashing all week.
you liked him, Tyreek Sapp.
Yeah, yeah,
Shorter defensive end, but man, he's strong. He's 275 pounds and he's athletic.
yeah, and he just won. Like he just won reps, and he didn't get pushed off the line. Really, he was somebody that I didn't know a whole lot. I didn't recognize his name much because he wasn't in the group of guys I had looked into before I got down there. And I kept making notes, and I'd be looking up who is this number, and it was constantly Sap, and made a lot of notes about him. All the guys you mentioned, yeah, absolutely. Kyle Lewis was. My goodness, he came in this week and showed he might be the best coverage linebacker we've seen in a long time come out. The stuff he was doing against running backs and one-on-ones and team, the violence and suddenness, the quick trigger in everything he was doing in the teams was incredible. I really like TJ Parker, the kid from Clemson, the defensive end.
Yeah.
Zion Young. They were almost like 1B, 1A, 1B for me. I had them like basically graded the same from the last week. They're both long arm guys. And that's what the 49ers love from defensive line players, long arms. They want that. There's a number of really good speed guys coming out of this draft, I think, on the edge. I think guys that can really win out there. I like Anthony Vincent from Duke. He's a smaller side, but really long.
Yeah.
He kind of reminds you of a Leonard Floyd with the way he moves and the length, the speed. See, really liked who else did I have on here? It was Nadame Tucker.
Yeah, from Western Michigan or something like
Yeah,
that.
Western Michigan. Really liked him.
Very productive player in college.
Yeah. Yeah, he was interesting. I think one of the more interesting prospects. I don't know what to think of him. He's a lot more undersized. He didn't have great production at Boston College, but Quintavious Hutchins, just because the physicals on the field were really impressive. The speed, the bend around the top. He has that bend around the tackles, which is, that rare trait that we love so much from defensive ends. I just don't know if the production matches what you have there. He would be a project defensive end. He'd be kind of that, late round guy, but it would be something that's interesting to see. I think that this class, last year's class, felt like it was really strong with interior defensive linemen. This one feels like it's stronger with edge players. Just for me, kind of eyeballing what we've seen so far.
The one, sometimes you look at a prospect and you're like, well, man, this guy's just tremendous heart, and you realize how much better he is than you really thought. To me, the more I watched Indiana in the playoff, and the more I watch this running back they have, Kalen Black. He's just a lot to like. There's, I walked by Emmitt Smith yesterday in the media room, or in the Moscone Center there at Media Row, and you forget Emmitt Smith's a tiny little guy. He's like Emmitt Smith, no more than 5'8", 5'9". He's pretty short, but he was 5'8", 5'9", 208 pounds. But what he had was tremendous heart. And this kid for Indiana just has tremendous heart. Kalen Black. If there's one running back I could add to the room for in the draft to go with Christian McCaffrey, it would be this kid. There are faster backs, there are bigger backs, that's for sure. And you don't have to take him high. I think he's probably going to be in there in the 4th or 5th round. But wow, the second effort, the leg strength.
Leg strength is unreal.
Yeah, this kid's fresh. He looked really fresh, and he had been playing all the way through the national championship. It's just, he's got the heart of a lion, man. This is a great compliment back. He's not a star, but he would be a fantastic number 2 to McCaffrey.
When it was the last day, they were doing running back drills on our side of the field, right about the 50 where we were sitting, and watching him just go through his drills. One, like you said, the leg strength. When you talk about I know appearances can be deceiving, but when you saw all those running backs standing there, and Kalen Black's thighs were just almost look 50% bigger than everybody else's. The kid is so strong in the lower body. He he measured in at 5'9.5" and 208 pounds at the Senior Bowl, and he looks like he is every bit thick. And like it's a lot of it in the legs, and you can tell the kid works hard. I mean, he's ripped. I mean, just an absolute stud, but
Tremendous
super twitchy in change of direction, in reaction time. They were doing drills of reaction drills, and he was so twitchy. Change of direction was so high. Again, just looking sharper than everybody. They were doing drills of agility drills, and he's just moving through them faster than every other running back, and he's getting through it. And the feet look so smooth, so fast. That you go, when you look at this Shanahan wide zone, it's, for a little while, we were really on the types of the home run hitters, the sub 4.4 running backs. It was like every running back was going to have sub 4.4, and they wanted home run hitters. And what you've seen the last few guys outside of Garendo, Garendo's been that, but he struggled. Well, then they go get Jordan James, who isn't that. But what does he have? He can be a dynamic threat in the passing game, and he's got really good feet, really good balance, and runs behind his pads. And that's what I'm reminded of with Kalen Black, is he's got really good feet, really good balance. He can be a receiver out of the backfield, and he runs behind his pads. And that's what I really like. I'm all on board with Kalen Black as well. Really impressed by the kid in his week at the Senior Bowl.
Johnny, we'll let you go. Thanks for jumping on CamBR. Johnny's a great follow on X at Johnnydels, and obviously Johnny goes deep on the Senior Bowl prospects and will be very much informed throughout the draft season. So if you're looking for great content, go check out Johnnydels on X and of course on YouTube. Johnny, thanks for jumping on the leader, man. We appreciate you.
Oh, thank you for having me on.
Johnnydels. More straight ahead. It's Niners Nightly on the Sports Leader.